Nothing has been written in yet for next month. Curious. Nothing has been written in yet for next month. Curious. Odd. The page for this month has been torn out. You suppose Edwards might know anything about that? The former Percival McDonough, being a good politician. Biographies and autobiographies. Dull, dull, dull. These appear to be books on cryptography. I suppose everyone needs a hobby. History books and political theory. I might die of boredom. Again. History books and political theory. Biographies and No signs of forced entry that I can see. The murderer didn't come in through this window. Leave it to a politician to hang a portrait of himself in his own office. Nothing has been written in yet for next month. Curious.
Got a moment, Edwards?
Of course. What's on your mind?
So, what was found at the crime scene?
A dead body.
Edwards.
Hey, just trying to lighten the mood a bit. Anyway, there was also the word justice written in blood, as you can see on the floor there.
Is that all?
What more do you need? All the pieces are in place. This is the work of the justice killer.
Edwards, did you notice McDonough's desk calendar?
I did. This month has been torn out. I asked the officers investigating the scene, and they had no idea what happened to it.
So it wasn't found in this room?
That's right. My theory is that the killer took it.
Which means there was probably something incriminating written on it. If only there was some way of knowing what it was.
Miles, have you forgotten the oldest trick in the book? Just find a pencil and you'll have that information in no time.
Edwards, do you have a pencil I might borrow?
Of course. Take this one.
Thank you. Does it feel good to be out of the office?
As long as I have the chance to examine a body and learn something in the process, I don't care where I am. Though I do admit a preference to working in my own environment. Fieldwork can be a bit uncertain. There's so much more potential for contamination, especially with those clumsy officers trouncing about groping everything. Present company excluded, of course.
What's your take on this whole justice killer situation?
It's giving me a lot of extra work, let me tell you. We haven't had a serial murderer in a long time, not since that fellow who was poisoning people about 10 years ago.
Ah, yes. The Gascon Ghoul. Now there was a case.
Any theories or insights regarding the killer's motive or identity?
That's not really my specialty. If you want to get into that psychology stuff, you're better off talking to someone like Snelling.
Did you find an Easter lily anywhere?
An Easter lily?
Yes. The justice killer leaves one at every crime scene.
Is that right? I never noticed.
Neither did anyone else, apparently.
So how does leaving a lily at the scene of the crime figure into all of this?
I'm still trying to figure that out, but I think it might be important to understanding his motive.
Well, be sure to let me know if you do figure it out. The thought process of killers is a twisted, curious thing.
What did your examination of the body turn up?
Apparent cause of death was a single gunshot to the head, exactly like all the other victims. The bullet is still lodged in his brain. I'll remove it once I transport the body back to the mortuary.
Anything else?
No personal effects of note, just a folded up piece of paper in his breast pocket. It's blank, so the police weren't interested. I assume you aren't either.
Never assume, Edwards. I'll take it if you don't mind.
Be my guest.
Did the police manage to learn anything during their investigation?
Not much beyond what I've already told you. I think they were planning on speaking to the victim's wife, though.
Did you get the address?
I did, as a matter of fact. 1820 Kent Place.
Now we get to deal with the grieving widow. Hopefully the officers who delivered the news got the worst of it.
That's all for now, Edwards.
Good luck with your investigation.
A classic trick. Let's see if it works. Intriguing. We'll need to find out who this Ruby is. Aha! McDonough met with this person the night of the murder. I'll bet 500 crowns it's a false name, but at least it's something. It seems the killer didn't want anyone to know about this meeting with McDonough, and possibly not with Ruby either. It seems the killer didn't want any...
What? Who are you?
I'm Miles Fordham, private investigator. Your butler just announced me.
Oh, of course. Forgive me. I was just, well, never mind. Please make yourself comfortable, Mr. Fordham.
Thank you, Mrs. McDonough.
Just a painting of some boring old aristocrat. Surely this one was called Lady Felicity Euphemia Beaversnatch the Simple. They look expensive, but I bet they're totally worthless. I feel sorry for the sucker who has to clean them. Lord Alfred Edward Shufflebottom the Wise comes to mind when looking at this one. This one looks like a Lady Camilla Prudence Wigglewaddle the Grey. I think I'll call this one Lord Edmund Henry Lickspittle the Elder. They look expensive, but I bet they're totally worthless. I feel sorry for the sucker who has to clean them. They look expensive.
I appreciate you seeing me, Mrs. McDonough. I know you must be going through a difficult time right now.
What exactly is it you want from me, Mr. Fordham? I already spoke to the police about my husband's murder.
I just have a few questions of my own.
Oh, very well.
What can you tell me about your husband?
I'll tell you the same thing I told the police, Mr. Fordham. Percival was one of the hardest working members of Parliament. He took his job extremely seriously. The recent election caused him a terrible amount of consternation, as I'm sure it did most people. He took Atwood's loss rather hard.
Did you see much of him?
I beg your pardon?
Surely someone with such an important position in government could find themselves consumed by their work. Did he spend much time at home?
He made it a point to come home and have dinner with me every night, even if he had to return to the office afterwards.
And did that happen often?
At least 3 or 4 times in a week, yes. He'd stay in his office working late into the night. As I said, he was very dedicated to his role.
Sounds to me like she's quite dedicated to hers, too.
Did your husband have any enemies?
He was a politician, Mr. Fordham. Half the city hated him.
Did he ever receive any kind of threats against his life?
None that I was ever made aware of. I have no idea who could have killed him, let alone who could have gotten into his office to do it. He hadn't told me about any meetings or appointments this week either.
Was it his custom to inform you of his work affairs?
Oh, well, I've always taken an interest in my husband's work. He'd often mention initiatives he was working on or people he was meeting, that sort of thing. Nothing sensitive or confidential, you understand. Just conversation about his day.
Can you think of any reason why your husband would have been murdered?
Not really. He was a vocal opponent of the construction of the Gascogne-Chumley Bridge, but I hardly think that would have been sufficient reason to drive someone to murder.
Why is that?
Well, it's just a bridge, isn't it? There are plenty of other ways to get to Chumley.
I meant, why was he opposed to it?
Oh, because the amount of money required to build it is exorbitant. Public funds should be used on roads and buildings that are falling apart. What's the point of having something shiny and new if everything around it is in disrepair?
How are you feeling, Mrs. McDonough?
My husband of 42 years was shot in his office. How do you think I feel?
Tactful as always, Fordham. How do you do it?
My apologies. Perhaps that wasn't the most appropriate question. Is there anything I can do to help?
You can start by finding the monster who murdered Percival.
Are you familiar with the art of cryptography, Mrs. McDonough?
What an odd question.
It's just I noticed several books on the subject in your husband's office.
Oh, well, yes. Percival was interested in cryptography and secret messages and the like. He would sometimes leave me coded notes when we first began courting many years ago.
What kind of notes?
Oh, now, Mr. Fordham, those were private. But Percival got a thrill out of knowing I was the only one who could read them. Sometimes he would write them using a special ink that would only appear when the paper was heated. I can't remember the last time he did that, though.
You know anyone named Shackley?
No, I've never heard that name before. Why?
I saw your husband had a meeting scheduled with him shortly before his murder.
That can't be right. He didn't tell me about that. He always told me about his meetings.
It was written on his office calendar, clear as day.
As I said, I don't know who that person is. Why wouldn't Percival have told me about their meeting?
Why indeed?
Are you familiar with someone named Ruby?
I can't say I am. Who is it?
Just a name that's come up in my investigation.
Sounds like the name of a trollop. Or perhaps a dog.
Have you heard of the Justice Killer?
That was the name the police mentioned when they told me about Percival's murder. It's absolutely terrifying to think that one sick person could be capable of such evil. Why is he called the Justice Killer? What justice was done by murdering my husband?
I'm afraid I can't answer that right now, Mrs. McDonough, but I intend to find out. Those are all the questions I have for now, Mrs. McDonough.
All right, Mr. Fordham.
If this actually works, I'll eat my hat. Well, I'll be damned.
Can we talk some more, Mrs. McDonough?
I suppose so, yes.
Do you know anything about this letter?
I'm afraid I don't have my spectacles. What is it?
The coroner found it in your husband's pocket. He gave it to me because he thought it was blank. But after you told me about your husband's propensity for writing secret messages, I decided to try exposing the paper to heat. Allow me to read it to you. Dearest Mary, words cannot express the regret and sorrow I feel for how I acted last night. I swore to myself I would never harm you again after the last time, but I have failed us both. It is my deepest hope that you can forgive me and trust that I will never allow this monster out again.
I see. May I have that letter, Mr. Fordham?
I'm afraid I have to keep it for now. It's evidence.
I suppose that does make sense.
Mrs. McDonough, did Percival mistreat or abuse you?
He wasn't a bad man, Mr. Fordham. I wouldn't have married him if he was. It's just the stress of his responsibilities would sometimes oppress him. I would try and offer comfort, soothe his nerves, but there were a few instances where he lost control of his passions.
Did he ever hit you?
He did.
How many times did this happen?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe 2 or 3. You don't exactly count these things.
What a bastard. Maybe it serves him right for getting shot.
Thank you for your candor, Mrs. McDonough.
Can we please talk about something else?
Those are all the questions I have for now, Mrs. McDonough.
All right, Mr. Fordham.
No need to talk to him just now. Thank God. No need to talk...
Mostly cookbooks. It looks pretty similar to the one in your bed. Not a very inspiring piece. Therein lies Upton's boudoir. As a matter of respect, the less said the better, I think. These appear to be books on cryptography. I suppose everyone needs a hobby.
No time to waste with further conversation right now. You've got a killer to find.
The former Percival McDonough, being a good politician. Nothing but a bunch of boring documents. You'd think he could have at least been considerate enough to keep something scandalous in here. Nothing but a bunch. Looks pretty fresh.
Hello again, Mr. Fordham.
Probably best to leave her to... No need to talk.
Safe for only 25 men at once. I used to draw the line at 2. I wonder if it would be any fun to tie yourself to that thing and go for a few spins.
Excuse me.
Hey, what are you doing here? This is a construction area.
I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the murder of a man who used to work here.
Fordham? You the same man who got Laura Dupre arrested?
Yes, that's right.
Ah, good to meet you. I'm Gerard. My sister Amelie used to work as her cook. Would tell me stories about how horrible Dupre was. Good to see some justice done for a change.
Glad to be of service. And good to meet you as well, Gerard.
So you say you looking into a murder? You talking about Bowditch?
Yes, that's right. I had a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
Nah, should be okay to talk for a few minutes.
You worked with Ennis Bowditch, right? What can you tell me about him?
Ennis was fun to talk to, always telling stories. Pretty sure most of them were made up. But it made time go by faster while we worked, and he made me laugh. We weren't really friends, but it's duller without him around, you know?
Do you know what Bowditch did on his off time?
Not really. I only saw him on the job. But I know he was seeing a woman. I forget what he said her name was, though.
Did he mention anything else about her?
Oh, sure, but I don't think they're the type of thing that would help you, if you get my meaning.
Right. Anything of a non-personal nature that might help me find her?
Yes, he mentioned she worked as the serving girl at the ruined coffee house.
I see. Thanks. Do you know any details concerning Bowditch's murder?
I only found out when the boss man told us.
Can you think of anyone who might have wanted him dead?
Well, everyone here liked him. I don't think he owed no one money or nothing like that. But maybe someone at his other job wasn't so friendly with him. Who knows?
Other job?
Ennis also worked at the docks as a longshoreman.
Well, that would have been handy to know sooner. Better late than never, I guess.
Are you familiar with the Justice Killer?
Justice Killer? No, I don't know anything about that. Who is he?
A serial murderer. He's the one who killed Ennis Bowditch.
And you trying to find him?
That's the plan.
Well then, I wish you luck. Ennis didn't deserve to die the way he did. I hope that murdering bastard gets what he deserves.
So, the Gascogne-Chumley Bridge is finally being worked on.
That's right. The project started up again shortly after the election. That Leroy, he's not wasting any time. Maybe a good thing for this city and for the country.
Indeed. I think it will be. How long before the bridge is complete, do you think?
They say it will take 5 years, but who knows? As long as the work is steady, you won't find me complaining.
Do you normally work in construction?
Mostly. Sometimes I be doing other jobs here and there. But I'm lucky to have gotten this job. I think it will keep me in work for a long time. Which is good, because I have 3 mouths to feed at home.
Be sure to watch yourself then. I hear these types of jobs can be dangerous.
Oh, believe me, I know. One slip up and bam! That's the end of you. But I always watch myself.
How's your sister doing?
Good. She still works for the Dupre family, but with that monster Laura gone, she's much happier. She tells me the family is acting like the madame never existed, and the husband raised Amelie's pay, too.
That does sound like an improvement.
It's just a shame 2 others had to die for it.
Thank you, Gerard. I appreciate the information.
Not a problem, boss.
This place sure is big. I wonder if they actually make anything useful. Well, that doesn't look good.
Excuse me, sir. Are you in charge here?
Unfortunately. Who are you? This area isn't open to the public.
I'm Miles Fordham, and I'm a private investigator looking into the murder of one of your workers.
A private investigator, eh? And maybe you can help me out.
I'll do what I can, but I'll need to ask you some questions, Mr.
Mims. Sanford Mims. Go ahead, but make it snappy.
What can you tell me about Hannibal Kirkland? A former employee here?
Listen, I've got a lot on my mind right now.
I understand, but it's important to my investigation that you tell me what you know about him.
I'm sure it is, but as you can see, I've got a lot to deal with right now.
Well, he's no help. Maybe you can figure out a way to help him help us.
Are you sure you can't tell me anything about Hannibal Kirkland?
It's like I've told you. I've got to deal with this mess. I don't have time for your questions.
What happened to your iron mill?
What's it look like? The damn thing went and got blown up.
Was it in disrepair?
Of course not. All my machinery is sound, checked and serviced regularly. This is the work of those goddamn Redites. I'm sure of it.
What makes you certain the explosion was the Redites doing?
Take a look, boy. The whole mill got taken out. Even if this had been a mechanical failure, which it wasn't, the explosion would have been contained to a single part of the machine. This couldn't have been anything other than sabotage.
Have you had problems with the Redites before?
They've sent anonymous letters, but this is the first time they've actually carried out one of their threats.
You're absolutely sure this was sabotage, then?
Yes. How many times have I got to tell you that? Listen, you said you were an investigator, right? So find out who did this to my machine. If you do, I'll help you out with whatever else you wanted to ask me about.
Looks like we haven't got much of a choice. He seems pretty upset about his machine.
I'll see what I can do. Are you familiar with the Justice Killer?
Who?
He's a serial murderer who's killed 5 men over the past 4 months.
Is that right? Never heard of him.
He may have killed one of your men. Weren't the police here asking about it?
Oh, is that what that was all about? I know they came poking around here a while back, but I was busy dealing with other things.
It's nice to see the lines of communication here are wide open.
How long have you been the foreman here?
Sometimes I think it's been too long. Things were so much easier before we got these machines. They keep saying they're supposed to improve our lives, but they've been nothing but trouble. I've already had 5 of my best men get mangled by some of them. And then there's these damn fools blowing things up. My hair wasn't this gray 5 years ago, you know. I swear one of these days, I'm just going to pack it all up and retire. Let someone else deal with these damn things.
I'll be going now.
Be careful on your way out. Hey, that area is for workers only.
My apologies.
You there! What are you doing?
I'm Miles Fordham. I'm trying to find out about...
No time for that now! Get in here and shield your eyes!
I beg your pardon?
Just do it!
What's going on exactly?
Shh! Everything ready, Alex? 3, 2, 1, go! Amazing! It works! It works!
What works?
Etheric lamps! Our experiment was a success!
What exactly have we wandered into here, Miles?
May I ask you a few questions?
Of course! What would you like to know?
You worked with a man named Burley Cause, is that right?
Yes, I heard he was killed. Such a senseless tragedy. It's a shame he missed out on our demonstration. He was really interested in etheric technology.
Wasn't he concerned about losing his job to these technological advances?
He had no reason to. It's been made clear to all the workers that there will always be a place for us, even if our jobs are made obsolete. Unlike some other places, we take care of our own here at the Lamplight Depot.
How noble. But I'm pretty sure he's full of more hot air than the HMS Lenore.
Is there anything you know about Mr. Cause's personal life that might be relevant?
I know he was married, but I don't believe he had any children. Oh, and he used to talk about his love for fishing.
Could you give me his home address? Perhaps his wife will be willing to speak with me.
Yes, certainly. He lived at 820 Orchard Avenue, apartment 2A.
Thank you for the information. Do you know any details about Mr. Cause's murder?
Unfortunately, I don't. The police were here asking questions, but they didn't give me many details.
Do you know of anyone who might have wanted him dead?
Not at all. Burley was very friendly, always treated everyone around here with respect. You know, it's sad to think that for all our leaps forward, we're still really just a bunch of savages.
Are you familiar with the Justice Killer?
I've read about it in the newspaper. A horrible business. It makes me wish we could install more street lamps to keep this city safer at night. Someday, I hope to realize that dream. Then we'll really deserve to be called Lamplight City.
You think brighter streets will stop serial murderers?
It's well known that crime rates are lower in Lyon and Worcester, and they have many more street lamps per square mile.
I'm sure it has absolutely nothing to do with the amount of wealth in those areas. Has to be all about the lighting.
You mentioned something about etheric lamps?
Yes! Weren't you paying attention to our demonstration? You have just witnessed history!
What I witnessed was a blinding flash of light.
Exactly! That flash was the result of years of painstaking research and experimentation. It means that not only does ethericity exist, but it can be used as a source of illumination. If these experiments continue to be successful, as I suspect they will, we'll have etheric street lamps before the end of the decade. Imagine lamps that burn twice as bright, 4 times as long. Oh, this will change everything.
And if it's like anything else we've seen, it'll put a lot of people out of work, too.
With all these promises of technological advancement, have the Redites given you any trouble?
Oh, those tech-fearing dolts. Yes, I'm sorry to say that we've gotten threats from them. They have yet to carry any out, which is unsurprising.
How so?
Groups like that are all bluster and no backbone.
I've seen some evidence to the contrary.
Is that right? Well, we've seen little beyond threatening letters, and I intend to make sure it stays that way.
Do you have any of these letters I might have a look at?
Yes, I have one. I'll give it to you before you leave.
What is it you do here exactly?
Oh, several things. This is the main hub of the city's Department of Illumination. It's really just a grandiose way of saying that this is where all affairs related to street lamps and public lighting are taken care of. But, in addition to sending out lamplighters or mechanics to repair damaged lamps, we also do research into new methods of illumination. That's what my personal specialization is. I help develop and test more efficient ways of lighting our streets. I guess you could consider me a modern-day Prometheus. Yes.
More like an everyday pretentious.
Thank you. Your cooperation is much appreciated.
Happy to help. Here's that letter you were asking about.
Now that's interesting. Whoever wrote this letter signed it with initials. They can't have been so stupid as to make themselves so easily identifiable, can they?